Where will the Republicans stop causing education to fail and placing the blame on schools? Uh, we know Republican Schwarzenegger had stolen $3 billion from California schools, and we had to sue to get that money back. In repeated occasions, Republicans have tried to shut down the Department of Education. And President George Bush right now is taking money that should be going to the schools and wasting it in an unnecessary war. Well, maybe the Republicans who are pushing for. Oh, and by the way, now that I remember, the other day I talked about a paper that came to my hands about Republicans wanting to cut yet another $5 billion from education. Why don't they cut that from war? I mean, we are spending over $200 million a day in a war that should not have taken place. We are willing to spend $1 million to create a bomb and then destroy it over somebody else's house, who in a country we shouldn't even be in the first place. Instead of burning that money, send it to the schools. I have with me the budget from the school for which I work. I don't know if the principal is going to like me for doing this, but I do see the need for the public out there to know what school finance is like. Let's see. Schools are funded through two major funds. They are the general funds and categorical funds. The school in which I teach has $12,000 in general funds for the whole year. $12,000, from which all the expenses that go into running a school from day to day are supposed to come out from those $12,000. That is unrealistic. It takes about $6,000 for just the curriculum per subject. Furthermore, Title I funds. These are the funds that go into helping lower economic students, such as providing free lunch, among other things. We have $30,100. And in a school is about 600 students, and 80 to 90% come from lower economic status. This $30,000 only gives us about $3,000 a month to feed these students. That only gives us about $300 worth to feed 600 students per day. Let's do the math. That gives us roughly $2 to feed one student. Have you ever been able to buy yourself lunch for that money? Be realistic. Oh, and to top things off, Title I doesn't only go to helping feed those children. It also goes to other assistance to their families, as well as school supplies that directly benefit them. We have LEP funds. LEP means Limited English Proficient. These are funds that go into financing programs and materials to help those students who do not know English acquiring English proficiency, as well as to keep up with general subjects. These are the funds that go, for example, into satisfying the needs of Proposition 227, which was idiotically voted for. But that's another story. In LEP funds, we only have $70,910. From that, we're to get materials or to get supplies. I'll read you what we have from those things in a few minutes. But $70,000 will not help LEP students keep up with fully proficient English students. There are a lot of things that need to be sacrificed in that way, and then you wonder why schools are failing. 10%. By the way, 10% of the funds from Title One by requirement need to go into parent liaison, and that is in trying to get parent volunteers and the expenses that such programs incur, such as fingerprinting costs, among other things. We have ELAP. For it, we have 62,860, and I skipped SCE, which means State Compensatory Education. These are categorical funds. Make sure it sounds like a lot of money, but if you add it all up, this is pretty much adds up to say I believe 300,000 or so. As I mentioned in another video, it takes about $300,000 to have a decent technology program up and running. These funds cannot all be applied to technology alone. We have a whole lot of areas that we need to apply, and we are not even covering the half of it. Let's continue. Let's look at the expenses. With the salary of most certificated teachers, from these categorical funds that I have just mentioned, we have the project facilitator salary being $70,000. Her job is very important in the school, for she makes sure that teachers have the resources that they need. She is also we also have $5,000 being spent in for substitute teachers. This is for the whole year, mind you. Oftentimes, a teacher might need to be absent because of sick leave, and or going to a conference and things of that nature, jury duty. And we need to get substitutes to cover the needs of those students while that teacher is out. These are very legitimate reasons, and they're a fact of life. We cannot reject those things. And most of the time we get an overabundance of need to get those substitute teachers, to the point in which we don't have even enough substitute teachers to cover all the needs. Sometimes teachers get this straight. Teachers sometimes need to do extra duty in supervising recess instead of having their duty-free lunch, which is okay, and even in participating in budget plans such as the SSC does, among other things. We also have to spend, for that teachers obviously need to be paid, and we only have 12,544 on that area to cover the need for the extra duty of that 27 teachers might put in a single school for the whole year. Imagine that. Imagine that. Do the math.